Hello, I'm David Eichholtz with David Richard Gallery, located in New York City. And today we are with Joe Ramiro Garcia and his first solo show with our gallery, and also your first solo show in New York.
Yes.
I didn't realize that, although you were in a group show I noticed in Bronxville, which is not New York City, but it's really close.
It's been little different things and stuff, but nothing.
Yeah,
like
it's just up on the Metro North, not too far. So, this body of work, we're standing in one of the bays of the presentation, and what I'd like to do is cover a number of different things about Joe's work. Part of it is there's some earlier works, like this piece to the left. I think this one's from 2010. This is Kong.
Yes.
And so this is an earlier one, which I was...
Actually, this one is 2014.
Oh, okay, that's right. The other one over there is 2010.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, reason why I thought they were important to include in the show is, first of all, I think they're really interesting. I love the details on this piece. But also, you'll notice, for the audience, you'll notice that there's a lot of things that become icons for Joe that get represented. Not exactly the same, but other similar images. And so they become sort of this dialogue that then become part of a discourse. So there's a lot of complexity in Joe's work, even though on the face it looks representational, figurative, pop, funny, whimsical, but that's sort of the hook to get you engaged. And then the rest of it kind of unpacks out of the viewer's own looking at these things and remembering some of these things and reacting to them. And so that's sort of the great thing about them. But the other thing too is, Joe, you really were never a printer per se, but you seem to love printing.
It's I like the more painterly elements of printing.
Okay, yeah.
So I love monotype printing. That was my introduction. The one carrier that I took from monotype printing was actually using some of the tools like brayers, but also the gum arabic lithographic paper printing technique.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing that and I've known Joe for a long time from New Mexico, which is where he lives and works, and our first gallery was out there, and gosh, we've had a house out there I think for 18 years or something, so we've been out there a lot, and we've known you through the other galleries you've been with and what have you, and also with the framer you work with. But I never realized how much you were into printing until working on this show with you and curating it. And then I was so thrilled that you actually included some monotypes. It really sort of surprised me. And so it worked out perfect because printing is such an important part of your work, and we'll get to that. And that's why this is a great corner, because it shows an earlier work with sort of a lot of these figures that become sort of your pals throughout your whole repertoire. It also includes a monotype, a print that also then speaks to this printing process that you use in virtually every piece, and I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So every painting uses this printing process, which is sort of a novel, as you called it, a paper lithography process.
For a lot of people, they usually think of anytime you involve printing into painting, they usually think of it as mixed media.
Yeah.
And I always hated that term because what I like...
It doesn't tell you anything.
Well, what it tells me is that there are different media to that paint surface, where in my case, I keep it oil and alkyd from the very beginning of the paint surfaces to the very end. So although it may appear like there's collage, there is no collage.
Right.
There's just the appearance of collage. And a lot of it is because we're not used to seeing paint do these things or being manipulated like that.
Yeah, and even when you do this sort of unique transfer process, it is paint. So that's the cool thing about it. So these aren't paintings, they are paintings.
Yes, they are.
So it depends on where your hands are.
Well, and exactly. And the other thing too is a lot of painting is been sort of allocated to brushes, and there's a lot of brushwork in these paintings.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's what drove me to printmaking, is that it got me out of using a brush for everything.
Correct.
And so, but it also kind of made you work. So when I'm doing this, I'm masking areas, I'm slathering and prepping areas. There's undercolors that are put in first before a printed image is put over it. So there's a lot of working to this, and it isn't just sitting on a chair doing this. It's a lot of moving around, and that keeps me involved. So if I was just sitting, I can understand where somebody would get bored or discouraged. But when you're constantly moving, you don't have time to be discouraged, and it takes it to a further level.
Yeah. And there's so much to get into with you on this. But the other thing I want to point out to people then, this is actually one of the most recent paintings. This is 2021, but I think this was like one of the last ones, wasn't it?
Like last out of the stable.
And it's also, you'll see a lot of similarities, but differences. So these earlier ones have a lot of blue. These newer ones are more green, and we'll get into sort of why that is. But the reason why I thought this was a great corner is this is one of the older ones and one of the newer ones. Some of the iconography is different. Some of it is repeated, and you'll see it over some in these earlier ones. But also, this is Louis, right?
That's Louis. That's my kitty, yeah.
And so Louis, all of a sudden now, has gone out of the cartoon-only realm into now having very distinct fur. And what's interesting about this is it's also done with that interesting sort of paper lithography process and a lot of overbrushing.
Exactly.
So there's lots of layers
it pushes it even further, and if nothing else, the paper lithography with a piece like Louis actually becomes more of a map, if nothing else, because I have to leave it to actually push further. So I have to keep it
because it's oil, so you do, that's right. So if you're doing a transfer and you want to do brushwork, you have to let that oil dry
exactly.
first. Unless you want to mix in it, but
which I'm not there. I like it. So it's really
this
about
is like
the
photoreal. I mean, this is like
it has some real texture too in raking light, which freaks me out when I see it in real, true raking light. It actually is. It's kind of creepy, but. But here's an example of Louis in a cartoon form.
Yes.
So Louis around and he goes back and forth, and it really is more that Louis is with me in the studio. So Louis, even though he's alive, he's very much part of the studio. So that's one of the reasons why he's there.
Yeah, no, is this one, I can't remember the studio? This is the title of this one?
This one's called Studio View.
Yeah, Studio View. Yeah, that's why I wanted to include that one. I thought it was really kind of perfect. So, all right, so if anybody leaves at this point, you pretty much got the nutshell of what we're going to do. Now we're going to get into some details of some of these things. And, but also for those of you who enjoy these video casts or discussions with the artists, be sure and subscribe. That way you can kind of keep up to date with these, because as you know, we do these with all the major shows and all the different artists we represent. And if it's an estate and a deceased artist, we try and talk with their friends or curators and people who know a lot about them, because we just think it's really important to kind of hear from the artist or people really direct to the artist about their work. So, so please remember to subscribe and stay tuned. So what I want to do now is, you've got an overview of this. Most of the work in this show, I'd say 90% of it is from 2021, which was done during the pandemic. There's a handful of pieces that are from 2010, 2014, and some from 2019. And as I said, I was really glad you incorporated them, because they're sort of anchors and really gives us a lot of fodder to talk about and project forward. Because as we've already noted, Louis has morphed, and your work is sort of changing now, and the bears are sort of morphing too, and they're getting much more nuance and detail in them, and they're really looking so hyper real with the fur and all that. It's sort of weird. And then you've got this very cartoonized, very loose. And I've always loved your painting style, because it is, I've liked the vibrancy of your colors. You've just got a great eye for color. And I think that's your hook. I mean, I think your lure is for people to get hooked on the image, on they'll see something that catches their eye, or the color, and then people really engage. And what's interesting about your work is it becomes one of these engagements where there's so much to look at, you cannot not look, I mean, so that's what I think is really fascinating. And then you're sort of stuck with, well, what's the point, and then you know what they remind you of. And so that's, I think maybe what we can do is, there's two things we want to talk about, is why the bears and what do they mean, and a few other things, but also, is there a bigger point, or is it really all sort of I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'd like for you to kind of articulate it, and I've written some things already about this work, but there is a lot left to the viewer.
There is a lot left to the viewer.
And was that always the intent, or is there really something, because you do title them, and there is some direction in the title.
The titles are anchors in a lot of ways. They're anchors to do some of the things that you were talking about. A point of departure also,
or something,
a place to land and a place to leave. My idea is that I don't think good art is for going to bed with. You don't want to fall asleep on art. Good art should keep you up. It should keep you engaged. You know?
No drool on art.
But so yeah, otherwise I'd be very bored. I like the way things vibrate, so I love color. I like the way, I love the shape of color as a square on the wall or as a rectangle. So those little formal and more minimalist aesthetics are really important to me. But as a painter, I've never been able to land in that zone where I felt like, okay, I'm done. I might have attempted it, and then I said, I think it needs something else. And I can't help it. A lot of the imagery comes from my daily life of taking notes. I love taking notes. And a lot of the imagery, including the printmaking process, comes from little notes that I make in a very small book. So if I think of a dinosaur, I say, well, what would a dinosaur look like? So I draw with my left hand into my book and draw a dinosaur. And then I can blow up that drawing really large.
And that's significant because you're right-handed. So,
I'm right-handed.
So the
when it comes to
left-handed
writing.
gives us a little bit of a primitive, sort of unschooled sort of hand about it.
I think it's more honest in a lot of ways. It's a lot more vulnerable. It's a lot clumsier. It's a lot like real people. Like
but it gets you to
really
focus
are.
on, with that clumsiness and not a skilled hand, because it's your left hand, you've really got to get the essence captured very succinctly.
And even if you don't, it still shows where you tried.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it. Whereas with your right hand,
you're okay with pedimenti and residue.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, with your right hand, there's immediacy to it, but there's also this contrived idea of skill, of, oh, that's a beautiful, you're such a beautiful handwriter. You know, you write these beautiful letters, and your letters are, there's so much you can say, and to me it's kind of schmaltzy. There's something kind of tacky about trying to be good about something.
Yeah.
So with your left hand, no matter how hard you try, there's still going to be a limitation based on the fact that you're not naturally left-handed.
Well, it's like brushing your teeth, or if flossing is a great example. There's some things you just can't do in reverse, you know? You're just so highly trained to do it that way.
And you know it when you're doing it in reverse, very much. And so maybe there's something about knowing it, that ultra in-the-moment consciousness with everything. Whereas with the right, it just goes so fast. There's no time to think.
So when you start out on a painting, though, do you actually have a point then, a central point? Does that help you decide, or does everything just kind of come organically and then you decide the title later?
Well, sometimes a title will come to me just because I like the way it might play into a painting conceptually, what it might mean or what it might come together. But as I'm working, I almost always have to leave these ideas because they're no longer appropriate to what the painting needs.
So you do have a concept, and then you do coalesce images and put them together, some images just to kind of get started then. You have sort of an idea in mind.
I do, but I usually find that it's too contrived. So in that, it's more of a point of departure where now I'm faced with the idea that my ideas aren't that great. And so now I have to save the thing. You know, like, do I paint over it and say, well, that was a good idea, but really wasn't that good? Or where does that go, and how, you know, how, there's a lot of like many painters, there's a lot of working on something, and then there's a lot of sitting and thinking about it, and wondering, should I even go further with this idea? Is it even worth going further with this idea? Or should this idea become that idea? And is that stronger? And a lot of times the answer is yes for me. And in fact, there really is true doubt and true failure in just about every single painting I make. There's definitely a point of doubt where I'm like, is that a good idea to do this? Is that worthy? Is that strong enough? You know, and then there's failure, like, in my mind I thought that would look like this, but it doesn't, it pales, it doesn't look like this. Is that okay now?
So then you'll just sort of work over something then. You'll try something, and if you don't like it, then you'll work over it.
I'll work over it, or I'll understand why it doesn't work and try to understand why that's better.
Gotcha.
So it catches me in my game and makes me up my game.
Right.
Because the moment I thought I knew what I was doing, I really realized I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew to go there. That's all I knew, is go from here to there. Once you're there, you'll figure it out. That's sort of like the way it goes.
So I'm going to have to spend more time kind of looking at each one and sort of detailing it a little bit, because when I look at this one, I see like Ignatz, you know, I see the Mouse, the Musketeer, Little Nancy, James Dean. You know, this always reminds me of Turkish cigarettes and things, you know, from the 30s and 40s. And so it was just, I'm looking at these trying to figure out, you know, sort of what is the essence here. And there's a little bit of Twilight Zone kind of going on as well. I mean, this one, I love the imagery, and I just keep looking at it, and I figure at some point too, I think, well, I really like the blue, and does it really matter? And, you know, and what it means. And I love the bears. I mean, so what's the significance of the bears?
Okay, so this monkey dude.
Or monkey, I mean, this one's a monkey, the other one's a bear. We're going to get to it.
Well, it's not that there's, okay, so there's a significance in adoration, you know, how we refer to each other, my little monkey or something, you know, there's this kind of.
And this is actually a stuffed toy you have.
Actually, this was a stuffed toy that a bartender had. She said, Joe, you should put my monkey in your paintings. And I said, I don't know, I don't think so. And then she brought it, and I said, okay. I looked at it, and I thought, I can't see myself putting that in my paintings. I can't see it.
And then lo and behold.
But I told her, let me borrow it for 3 days, and I'll bring it back to you. Because if I, you know. So I took some photos of it, and so I worked from the photographs.
Yeah.
And it was right. So I think
because he reappears a lot.
My connection with it, when I was a little boy, I did have a little monkey. I had a monkey with a little plastic banana that would go right in his, like this, you know. And I had 3 older sisters, and I guess there was something going on, like my dad might have been more conscious of maybe the fact that I was going to become a gay man at some point, so didn't want me to play with dolls. So I had this monkey. It wasn't a doll. It wasn't a little girl doll, but it was a monkey. So I'd wait for my mother to do the laundry, and I would pull the towels off of the clothesline, and the clothespins would fly off, and the towel would come down. It was just a little kid. And it was usually a long towel because I could reach it, you know. I was really short and small. And I would put it over the monkey, and I would take the clips and clip it on the ears, so my monkey now had hair. And so I'd run around with this thing, and it looks like, to me now, it also looks like a sheik or something, you know.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But it was hair in my mind. That was the hair. And what was so
Gotcha.
cool is that my monkey could have a different hairstyle every day, or any day. It could have yellow and short, or blue and long. So anyway, so the monkey came from that.
Gotcha.
I'm sure it did. But I haven't seen that monkey since, I don't know how many years ago. And
Gotcha.
so there it is, you know.
Well, this one too is something else. A couple of the pieces you do, and what I love about them, that one over there in particular, where it's a picture like this, but it's sort of folded, like you can tell it had been in a drawer or a book. And I love the fact that you also do like tape, you know.
Every once in a while there's tape, yeah.
Yeah, and so what it does is, it does 2 things. It does a number of things, and one is it gives this sense of doodling, which you now confessed without me asking. You already brought it up. It definitely reveals this sort of doodling and bringing and just sort of collecting things and looking at things and putting them around you as like sort of inspiration or to remind you of things. But at the same time, it also has this aspect of immediacy. You know, and because you know you're putting on there real slapdash and real quick, and you're not making it perfect and what have you, and but the other thing it does too is there's a literalness about it, and so I think that's the very interesting thing about your work. I mean, it's, you know, you commented about the layers, and then the more I understood about your process, like the monkey was probably multiple steps and lots of brushwork and multiple overlays of this, you know, lithographic process you do with the paper. And so, and just so people know, there's no paper on it. He uses the paper as sort of it's like a reverse of monotyping and stuff, but it's the same idea. You're taking
it delivers the paint
to it
to the
as
surface.
opposed to you putting the paper on the paint, but in a traditional printing process. So it's sort of an ass backwards printing process, but it's the same idea, and it's peeled off. And then because it's oil, as we've already said, then if you want to add this detail of fur, which he doesn't have nearly as much as the teddy bear does, but again, this is almost 15 years ago or something, or no, I mean 6 or 8 years ago, and you've kind of now moved into a different direction. But there is a lot of depth. There's a lot of layer. So there's visual depth, there's perceived depth, because you have like this brick wall back there, you got all these things layered on top of it, you've got things in picture frames, but there's also the surfaces worked and layered so that it's tactile. And, the detailing, definitely is the monkey and the bear and the cat are palpable. And so I think that's what's really interesting about them, because you commented that Jasper Johns was a sort of you were really influenced by his work.
Yeah.
I immediately see an influence of Rauschenberg, clearly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you're clearly a scanner like he was in the 60s and bringing all this stuff together, like, the bed and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely this observing the world around you and bringing it together. And but the other thing with Jasper Johns that I always immediately think of with him is, of course, device circle and the ruler and things, and that's that literalness.
Yes.
It's like, why have this, be sort of, illusory about it? Just
right.
put
It's
a
the
damn
opposite
spoon
of a
on it.
Monet painting,
Exactly.
where everything is
And so,
overly, like the embellishment is like this. So they're embellished differently. So the aesthetics have gone from like Impressionism to postmodernism, but there's still embellishment. The embellishment's just different,
Yeah.
So so for me, it's really about. It makes me think of things like Facebook, how people are posting pictures of what they're eating or how beautiful it is on a plate.
Yeah.
Well, I post pictures of the dishes. Of how I'm posting pictures, not on Facebook, but in my paintings. This is all about the sink and how dirty the sink is after you made that meal. So the embellishment is the rubbing, the scraping, the moving. If there really is a surface, then I might want to bump up against it with another color and show how the color grabs underneath the texture of the surface. So it also reminds us of like dirt in like a shed or something, or if you open a drawer in an old shed, there's going to be dirt and things are going to get layered with stuff, and there's this memory, this antique vintage quality to finding something that's been stored.
Yeah.
And so that turns me on, and although that's not bright and shiny and
So that sort of also explains a little bit of like, I love this thing right here, but it's like torn and tattered. But the other thing too is this is then like vintage paint where it's crackled from heat and what have you. So yeah, you bring in incorporate those
like
elements.
A lived-in quality. Because that to me is the color of our lives. No matter how pretty and brand new and shiny it is, eventually it's going to crack and it's going to rust and it's going to get some type of patina. And as a painter, those are the surfaces that really turn me on. I mean, I do like the fetishy kind of really slick stuff too, don't get me wrong. But even if you study them close enough, you will see, like with any great artist, you're going to see something that isn't perfect.
Well, and that's sort of, I think you've always also had a fascination with, and we have no example of it, I can't believe it in these three paintings, but Warhol.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but that was the whole thing with Warhol, was the fact that he loved printing and lithography because everything could be perfectly and exactly the same. And he was just so gobsmacked when he realized they're not. They're not 100% exactly the same.
Yeah, and that was its own turn on.
Yeah.
So Warhol was a big influence on me, just as Jasper John Rauschenberg as a teenager. So as a teenager, all you have are art books. I grew up in Houston, Texas. You're lucky to get to see good museum show here and there. The collections were good, but they weren't great, in Houston. But with Warhol, you had, and I also worked as a security guard at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, and we had some early Warhols there. And there's this thing where that idea is here it is here it is here, but they don't look the same. And it seems like something happened, something messed up on this one, but
the
it looks better
register's
on
off or something.
And that's what made them cool.
Yeah.
Because if they were perfect.
Well, I think that did become a fascination with him, but that's, I see people who have this fascination with Warhol. It's not so much the imagery, it's like people just, it's that whole, the whole backdrop of his work around reproduction and
there's a mix mash
iconography, and so you definitely have that sensibility, and you do even like to have periodically, and there's several of these that do, like there's flowers over there, and you've had
there's some references.
Yeah, there's Maryland's he pop up here and there. But in terms of fetishistic surfaces, this is sort of a new wrinkle for you, and that's sort of how I would sort of characterize these. These are a little bit pristine and sort of fetishistic in terms of being just this real perfect sort of gradient, almost sort of illusory optical.
It's a printmaking thing. It's called a rainbow roll, and it's where you take you take various colors and you roll the large brayer over it, until you make this really nice transitional thing. And in this case, I mask out the areas and then I roll over it.
See, you just went and spoiled it. You could have just left it at
I think that's the whole point. The whole point is spoiling everything, isn't it? You know, let's just ruin this.
Well, on this one, though, the other thing I think is interesting about this is I noticed your mint green, or this sort of interesting green, and you'd commented, and somewhere that I read, that a lot of these colors are now coming out of like your parents' house.
Yeah.
And even and I've noticed you have this thing about appliances and other things, and you even commented that these were out of that same house in Houston. And this looks like that carpet from like 1960s
exactly.
in Houston. So
it does.
So it's sort of interesting how you know, this one definitely has that feel, but this is your contemporary cat, not your dead cat from Houston. And but also now it looks like you're playing around with wallpaper, and like, were you trying to redecorate your mom's house or in your mind? Or
I mean, yeah,
but this one's called Louie's room or Louie's space, isn't it? Or
no, that's not Louie's place. That's called Invaders.
Invaders, that's right.
See, in this one, you've got these other elements, and Louie seems to be looking as if like he's checking something out. You know,
dinosaur.
Yeah.
One of these. You love. What are those things called? The mannequin?
The ventriloquist dummies. Yes. Well, you know, so I mean, I've always been careful not to over-explain things because I think that might mess things up. But there comes a time when you can tell people things too. So I as a painter, one of the hardest things to have is your own privacy, so you can hear your own thoughts, so you can do your own thing, and you know, people try not to be influenced by other things and stuff, and vice versa. You know, so we get to a place to where it seems like the outside world, especially with new technology, is right on us, watching us and stuff. So that's what I think about when I think of that one. Well,
but I think what's nice about your paintings is, first of all, they have. There's something that's just so familiar about them. Maybe it's just because of my age or something, but I think they have the same effect on we have a friend in common, you know, Barbara Marburger, and she just loves your paintings. And she's known you forever as well. She's known you about, you know, longer than me, actually. And we talk about your work periodically, and she's really excited. I think she's actually going to be here in New York next week, so she'll be here to see it. But there's this familiarity about your work, but also at the same time, the compositions just hold so well together. Like I said, I think the colors are a lure. That blue is such a lure. You're just drawn to it because it's like that fabulous New Mexico blue. And the other thing too is these colors. I mean, I love green, but I just love this sort of retro green, you know, from back then, and those colors. But then I think this orange. So they just kind of come together really nicely. And there's something very nostalgic about this one because of the wallpaper and the carpet, and then you have these sort of wonky things, though. And I love these little moments, and you do this a lot, where they're just sort of like formal explosions. You just sort of just kind of decide to do something that's kind of oppy or hard edge, or to sort of like break up the tension. It's almost like when it starts getting too serious, you do something wonky to kind of break the tension or create tension to break away from that.
It's as if like when you're working on things, you're almost you get real close to becoming something else. And you have to be careful with it because you can overly step into a place where now you are this. I paint interior paintings, but I really don't.
No, a lot of yours are like this. They're almost sort of surrealist. I mean, Louis floating. He's not really grounded in anything. I mean, not Louis, but I mean the monkey.
He really isn't. Yeah, and it could be misunderstood as various things. Yeah.
And the only reason why we know it's sort of outdoors is because you kind of put in now sort of the sun and
stars.
And so is it day? Is it night? And so. But it's almost like this is like a graffitied wall or something because you've given us the exposed brick. And this lattice, and but yet it looks like it's inside, and this is all taped, put together with tape, or something, and just I don't know. They're fairly indescribable, I think, but there's something very.
Their surface, they relate to a surface, and they also can relate to something inside a surface.
Yeah, I mean, there's formal elements you get immediately, the color and just the compositions are just so well balanced and thought out, but yet there's a almost randomness about it that leaves them really open to interpretation. So I think that's the charming thing about them, because it's like you said, you don't. In fact, and all the times we've ever talked, before, you've never really said, "Oh, this is about this." I just happened to think about that as I was trying to write the essay, and I thought, "Wow, I don't really remember you ever saying kind of like this is this or whatever." And I'm going to nudge Barbara when she gets here and see what her interpretation is and see how it syncs up. But she responds to your work, I think, a lot like I do. Is there's just something sort of warm and engaging, familiar, and it doesn't require a lot of overthinking. It's not making a big, bold political statement. Although the one thing, and we'll get to the others, and we'll wind this up here in a second, is there does seem to be an overarching thing about consumerism, like shopping and what have you. And unfortunately, we're facing the wrong way on this one. I'm just going to take this off the wall and turn it around so y'all can see it. But this is another monotype, and I love this. It's got this, what do you call it?
Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, the dinosaur, but also the Dollar General store. Is the glare horrible on this? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, this is a great one. And so and the dollar store shows up a number of places, but they're also taking over the world, it seems like, along with Walmart and Costco. But anyway, but the colors in this, this is this yellow, this great red, that green, the pink. I mean, it's just very warm. And unfortunately, it's sort of homey, and I realized, oh my God, this is probably like, when we were kids, we were thinking about, oh, do you remember the grand old department stores downtown and go to see Santa Claus and go shopping? And now young kids are like, oh, I just dreamed to go to a dollar store.
Well, and then you've got old kids doing that too. So,
then it reminds me of the new paintings you have called What in the World?
Yeah.
That's the title. So anyway, so we're going to move to some of these others, because we covered a lot of territory on this one, but there's a few things I specifically want you to comment on. And so we'll move the camera here.